What is up, my friends? Good evening to you all, and you are very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. We're going to have one focus, really, and that is going to be on the summer transfer window and what we need, what we can expect, and of course, what might be possible. So, over the course of the next 80, 90 minutes, I thought that's where we focus. The game earlier on has been and gone. There's nothing we can do to change it. It is what it is. So tonight, I'm going to try my best to bring people together, because what I've noticed over the past hour or so since I finished streaming, I've been spending time looking around, and I've noticed one common denominator. A lot of people disagreeing, a lot of people feeling pretty worked up, and a lot of people dividing each other from their opinions. And I want to try and just bring us together a bit tonight, because I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I'm not going to tell you what I think you should feel. I just want us to be happy. And that seems to have escaped a lot of the narrative today, in that yes, the game was frustrating, yes, the situation with Trent was what it was, but ultimately we should be celebrating, we should be rejoicing, and we should be looking forward to the future. So you and I can't change Trent's decision, or we can't change what might happen on the pitch, but we can change how we react to it and how we treat each other. So tonight I thought I'm going to come on and I'm going to try and be upbeat and positive and not try to ram my opinions down your throat, because I've really felt sad over the last hour or so, just seeing the back and forth with so many, and I'm not above it either, to be honest with you. I've certainly had a few things I got off my chest, but it's sad, and I don't want our fan base to be divided at a time where we should be celebrating. And it's not about getting behind the boys, not getting behind the boys. I'm talking about just us to each other as fans. You know, often as a football fan, and the tribal aspect that goes with it, it's us against the world, right? It's us sending a signal out there that we're going to stand our ground and we're going to support our club and our team. And I hate it when we turn on each other, whether it's over tickets, whether it's over transfers, whether it's over opinions on how the club is being run. I don't like it. There's enough people out there trying to bring us down, and I don't want us doing it to ourselves. So let's try and be positive, let's try and be upbeat, and let's try and have a look to the future and what may be possible in this summer transfer window. So over the course of the next however long we're on, we're going to be discussing just that. What can we do in the summer? Who's likely to depart? We're going to give you our thoughts on it. We're going to give you some thoughts from journalists, some links, and of course, feel free to contribute in the comments as much as you can. Right. There was punch-ups on the cop. I know, I've seen so much stuff. I've had messages from people who were at the game today, you know, on both sides of this Trent debate. But either way, what's been has been and what's happened has happened. You know, I'm not going to tell other people they should or shouldn't boo. I'm not going to tell anybody else how to feel. I'll give you my opinion. That's all I can do. But on this one, I just want Liverpool fans, again, us to be happy and celebrate and look forward. And I think we do have a lot to look forward to. There's no denying that this team needs a little bit of tweaking, that there are positions that needs to be upgraded. So let's talk about that rather than what we, you know, can change, which is what happened today at Anfield, how some people reacted, how others reacted. You know, I've got my own gripes with some of the reporting around it. I think there's a lot of, how do I say this? A lot of moral high horse speaking from certain journalists who, again, are talking down to Liverpool fans, and I don't like that. I don't like to see it. It is a situation that was preventable today, whichever way you want to look at it. But what I don't like, Liverpool fans and Liverpool fan journalists, I can stomach having an opinion on this. But what I don't like is other club fans, or the likes of Rio Ferdinand, trying to tell everybody else how to feel. Because quite simply, it's hypocrisy of the highest order. You know, if Manchester United under Alex Ferguson seen Paul Scholes leave at 26 to go anywhere after leaving on a free, I don't for one second believe that that wouldn't be met with frustration. We see Grealish still get booed going to Villa after bringing them in 100 million. I've seen Lallana and other players booed when they played for Liverpool and we've gone back to Southampton. So I'm all up for letting Liverpool fans and Liverpool journalists have an opinion, but the outside, the people who just want to bring us down, they can fuck right off. And whether that is former players or whom else, their opinions I've no time for, because they're irrelevant. They're quite simply just trying to stir the pot and undermine a season that they didn't want happening anyway. So leave them all to it. If they don't want us to succeed, well, I don't really care what they have to say. Right, I want to say thank you as well to Pasky9, who became a member again when we were off air. So thank you for that one, my man. Aaron said right back, centre back, left back, and central midfield striker minimum. Thoughts? Yeah, I think, and I also agree with the minimum part, Aaron, because there are other areas that I think may depend on some outgoings and what happens there. But right now, if I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the squad, yeah, left back certainly needs to be sorted out. Another option at right back. I think the interesting question would be, is it just one centre back that we need? You know, because for me, we never replaced Matip, so there's still a spot there that I think we need to replace. I want to actually, while we're talking about centre back, let's move on to this from Team Talk, who said that Nottingham Forest and Newcastle plan to go head to head to try to sign Liverpool defender Jarell Quansah. And I do feel we'll probably see the sale of one centre back, but whether that centre back is Quansah or Joe Gomez, I don't know. I don't know what's likely to happen there, and I'd be a liar if I said to you what will happen. I can give you my opinion on it, and my opinion on it is I would rather keep Gomez and bring in the money for Quansah personally, but I also totally understand how somebody would say, hang on a minute, Craig, Quansah's young, still developing, and we've seen injuries with Joe Gomez, so I get that as well. I just think with Joe Gomez, if he's fit and available, he gives us cover right across the back line, which I don't think I can undervalue, or I can underline enough how important I think that is. And for me, I'm still unsure of Jarell Quansah. When things are going well for him, he looks like an absolute Rolls Royce. But sometimes when things get a bit difficult, he looks a bit panicky. But today, the real frustration that I had from today's game wasn't whether people should boo Trent or not. It wasn't the atmosphere changing. It was the way that we just came out in the second half and became so soft and allowed Arsenal back into the game. I thought we were really poor from a central defending point of view. And I think Canada and Virgil certainly didn't cover themselves in glory today. So I think we need to be looking at what we can do set piece wise to stop leaking so many chances, because every single time we get a set piece against us, a corner, a long throw, a free kick, my heart's in my mouth wondering what's going to happen, because we usually give up a chance. Harty said it wouldn't have happened if Trent spoke out months ago. Maybe, maybe not. You know, my take, mate, I said, like you said, he should have spoken out a long time ago. I just think this situation today was entirely avoidable. You know, don't bring him onto the pitch and nothing happens and the game doesn't get spoken about. Sky can't get enough of this, by the way. You know, I spoke to you guys earlier on in saying that when Mohamed Salah was named Football Writers Association Player of the Year, you had to look hard to find that on the Sky Sports app. But after this game today, you don't have to look very hard to find 5 or 6 different stories about the fans' reaction to Trent. And that is, to me, an undermining of our club that I find sickening, quite frankly. Because, yeah, you want your clickbait stuff, don't you? You want to drive traffic while still pretending to be this institution that has the good of the game at heart. They know what sells and they know what works. And tapping into Liverpool fans and opposition fans' frustration at what happened today is what the angle they seem to be going with. And I find it pathetic, in all honesty. Heck said we switched off after the 2 goals. Well, we allowed them into the second half too quickly. Look, Arsenal had moments in that first half as well. Like, I don't want to talk about the first half as if it was all just glorious Liverpool attacking and we played them off the park. Yet we had 2 goals and deserved them. But Arsenal certainly had chances and we were, living on edge a little bit. Saka scores in the first 3 minutes and who knows how that first half pans out. But we didn't react in the second half, and that was what worried me. You could see that the tide had changed. You could see that Arsenal had the bit between their teeth, and they were coming and running at us, and they were just committing bodies forward, and we seemed to be unable to do anything to change that. And that was what concerned me more. We only really looked like we got back on the front foot after Arsenal went down to 10 men. And look, we could have won the game at the end, but I think a draw is probably a fair result. So these are the areas that concern me. Going back and looking at the free run that Enzo Fernandez had from midfield into our penalty area again against Chelsea last week, looking at the space that Martinelli had today and other Arsenal players in our penalty area. They're the type of things that I think we should be discussing as fans, because they're more concerning to me than a player leaving that we can't do anything about. Whitehammer, how are you, my friend? Said the most disappointing thing is we don't look like champions, and Arne doesn't look like a champion winning manager with his decisions lately, worrying for next year. So The one comment that's worried me actually from Arne is him speaking about, and I'm paraphrasing here somewhat because I don't think I have the full quote to hand. He said something along the lines of, my decision bringing him on was to try and win the game, and I'll bring him on against Crystal Palace as well if I want to try win the game. And I get that. I get that he wants to bring Trent on to maybe try win the game because Trent can make a difference. But where that kind of starts to fall down with me is, well, why are you bringing Darwin on? Because whatever we think about the Trent situation, yes, Trent has the ability to change a game, to make a pass or a cross that will lead to a goal. But what was bringing Darwin on going to do? That's what confused me today, because we know that he is not going to add anything positive in attack. We know that he's not going to turn the game around or grab it by the scruff of the neck. So why bring him on? There are some mixed messages from our manager that confuse me. You know, bringing on a player like Darwin there, who, as I said, his form's been terrible, but more importantly, his attitude towards our football club has been terrible. So for all the talk of respect, why has there been no talk of the disrespect that he showed to the club by making out like the only reason he wasn't being played was over 5 million, not playing well? And for me today, Salah didn't play well. And I would have taken him off earlier. Well, he didn't come off, but I would have taken him off. I would have left Diaz on the pitch. Like, there are some decisions like that that I find confusing. Carl said, hi Craig, I'm so disappointed with today. I really wanted to beat Arsenal. We need to look at the defence like you. I can't make sense of Arne's style. Yeah, it's weird, right? So we've had a whole season now of Arne Slot football, and many of us don't understand what a style of football is. And I still don't know. I really don't, because we don't seem to have a consistency of performance. We seem to have patches where we look like world beaters, patches where we look like the press is on, and then other times the team looks unrecognisable from the team that played the first 45, or the team that plays the second 45 looks unrecognisable from the team that played the first 45. And that's more concerning to me. So let's talk about Julian Alvarez, because this is a very interesting development if true, and I wanted to get your take on it. So Moby Haig put up a post earlier on X saying, Spanish media has reported that there is a €150 million release clause in the contract for Julian Alvarez, and he does say pending confirmation. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Let's say Alvarez release clause exists, and it is about 127 in pounds, something like that, 127 million in pound. Now, do I think Julian Alvarez is worth 127 million pound? No, I don't. But at least it's an option that we know is there. So there was talk that we'd have to pay similar money for Alexander Isak. And again, I don't think he's worth that money. But I'm very intrigued to see what direction we go with regards to the attack. And I'd also want to stake my claim and put my flag in the sand to say, I think it should be Jota and Darwin that moves on, and not Diaz and Darwin. Because to me, they're more worrying with their levels of performance. Diogo Jota I don't recognise from the same man who has served us well over the years. We've always known Diogo has injury concerns and sometimes his body lets him down, but his form has dropped off a cliff. So for me, they're two forwards that I think we need to prioritise replacing. Because yes, we know we need a left back. That's clear for everyone to see. But if Mohamed Salah hadn't have had the season he did in front of goal, where would we be right now? Because it's fair to say our central strikers have absolutely let us down this season. Our wide players have been carrying the burden of goal scoring, whether it's Diaz chipping in with, I think, his best Premier League season. Mohamed Salah, of course, having a great season statistically as well. And Cody Gakpo chipping in with a few. It's the centre area that's let us down. And whilst I love Diaz as a player, I don't like him through the middle. I feel like we're only doing that because we're so stuck, because Darwin and Jota are just so far removed from the levels required that we're losing a bit by putting Diaz through the centre. Now, in one way, it's good because it gets to have Gakpo, Diaz and Salah on the pitch, but I do feel like it's a glaring deficiency in the team. And Diaz tries his best, you know, he's never going to be lacking in effort and gets himself into the right areas at times, but he's not a natural number 9. So I think that is a big concern for me going into this summer and what we're prioritising. Striker should be the number 1 through the door for me. Personally, I think we should get the 150 million for Nunes. I've never seen somebody defend a goal better, said Alex Hardy. Look, I don't know, and I've said this quite a bit, we may get a very good indication of where Liverpool's forward interest lies with where Darwin goes. So, lots of talk of a potential double deal coming in from Saudi with an offer for Diaz and Darwin. I think it's Al Halal, but excuse me if I'm wrong on that one. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the window opens up on June the 1st and what business is done, both from a selling and potentially from a bringing to the club perspective. How much would Osimhen cost? Don't see him being mentioned with us lately. There have been a few links, Naheem, to Victor Osimhen. I just don't think he's the guy, to be frank with you, mate. But that's just a personal opinion. There was a couple of pieces that suggested that he was one of maybe 4 or 5 forwards that Liverpool were looking at. I think Sesko, Osimhen, Akitika, and maybe one. I can't remember the other ones because it wasn't Cunha and it wasn't Delap, so forgive me for forgetting, but I just don't think he's the guy. And I think he would have been an easy one to get if Liverpool did want to sign him, because obviously Napoli are going to want to sell. He's only at Galatasaray on loan. I just don't see him being the guy. But then again, I'll be entirely honest with you and say I can't sit here and tell you who I think Liverpool are going to sign through the centre, because I haven't got a clue. I know my own preference, but I don't know who the number one target is. Stevie Boy said, season done for me. Bring on the trophy presentation and transfer window. Hoping the owners pay up. Yeah, so am I. Very much so, hoping that they pay up. Because we need it. We do. We need it. Whatever the reason for us winning this league title this season, whether it is we were better than everybody else, whether it is anything, it doesn't matter. We know what deficiencies we have, and if they aren't addressed, well, then we're going to get the answer that the owners don't give a damn. But to be fair, it looks like they are going to spend some money. It's just a matter of how much money, and are we going to be satisfied with the players that come in? Big Bud 71 said Nunes looked like he could be good, but is disappointed. He might be the next Anthony. He's killing it at Milan. Anthony? Oh, he would kill it at Milan, sorry. Honestly, this is going to sound callous, and I promise you, I don't know how else to say it. I don't really care where Darwin goes at this point. He's annoyed me more than anybody else. I'm actually more annoyed at him than I am with Trent. Genuinely. I can understand the selfishness of Trent. Humans are inherently selfish. Looking after yourself and your interests, I can get. I don't like it, but I can get. Darwin, I just can't figure out. I just don't know. I just want rid of him at this point. Honestly, what he said about the club and not being played, it really, really wound me up, because I say a lot of things about this football club that I do and don't like. I have some positive things to say, some negative things to say. But I'll never question the ethos of the club. And I would never make an accusation of not treating a player correctly over a 5 million quid. What he said really wound me up. And I don't think enough has been made of it amongst Liverpool circles. He shouldn't be anywhere near the pitch, just for that alone. Hex said, Slot has shown what he can do with a small clutch of players that he trusts, so hopefully FSG fork out the dough for us to push on. So what's really disappointed me over the last couple of games has been, whatever way we talk about how we approach the Chelsea game, the Arsenal game, the Brighton game, the Palace game, i.e. the game since we've won the title, nobody's standing up. Nobody that's on the periphery of being sold is pushing themselves forward. So, for instance, Elliott came on today, and I don't think he's going to have changed the manager's perception of him with that. Other players who've been given chances over and over again haven't repaid that fate. So I do hope the manager shows a ruthless streak and in moving on the players that, just haven't been given a chance. And then, of course, we've got the likes of Chiesa, and I think the official word was that he has a knock or something like that. And I, for one second, think that, or don't for one second believe that's anything other than, the all reliable has a knock, can't play, as in don't want to potentially get him picking up an injury before he moves on elsewhere. So for me, that's why he wasn't in the squad today, because the club must have made a decision to move him on. But it's still a confusing one. So if I was to go through this squad now, and let's go through the main 17 or 18, I think I could probably pick out 6 or 7 players that should be sold. So we've lost the right back. I'd sell Kwanzaa. I'd sell Costas. I probably would agree with the sale of Elliott if it was to bring in somebody who the manager trusts, because as much as I'm a fan of Harvey Elliott, the lad, and Harvey Elliott, the player, if the manager isn't going to trust him, then I agree with selling him. You know, whatever we think doesn't matter. Ultimately, if he's not going to get enough game time, I'd rather have somebody on the bench who the manager feels can bring us that. So Elliott, Kwanzaa, Costas, Kelleher, Darwin, Jota. And look, then there's fringe players that I would definitely move on as well. The likes of Tyler Morton, the likes of Cade Gordon. You know, I think Liverpool can move on 8-9 players. But how many do we need to bring in? Well, I think then we'd need to bring in 2 forwards, a left back, a centre back. I'm unsure about the midfield situation until we hear from Arna about Stefan's future. You know, there's links, and we'll go through them, with the youngster from Athletic Club Bilbao. I will read those links out to you now, actually. 1 second. We went through these the other night, but it's worth going back through them. So Anfield Watch did a piece where they said, Anfield Watch can exclusively reveal that at the top of the list of holding midfield targets for Liverpool this summer is Mikel Uregizar. Excuse my pronunciation on that one, by the way. It's spelled Jauregizar. He's the youngster that scored that belter for Athletic Club Bilbao against United, 21 years of age. So if he gets brought in, let's say, well, then what does that mean for the futures of the likes of McConnell or Bajcetic, Trainioni? You know, do they go out on loan then? So these are things that I want to see cleared up, and hopefully we're very proactive when the window opens, and we're not waiting around. Hopefully there's things in the works that as soon as it opens we hear X, Y, and Z, because we need some positivity right now. And that sounds nuts considering we've just won the league, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it within our fan base at the minute. It doesn't feel like we're all over the moon, cock-a-hoop, celebrating. Again, somehow feels like the fan base is frustrated, especially with the second half performance there today, which only adds to it. Alex said Canade maybe if he doesn't want to sign the new extension. Look, for me, it comes down to that. And well, we're talking about players winning the manager over. I don't think Ibrahim Canade in the last few weeks has shown that he's a 200 grand a week defender. You know, today I thought him and Virgil were terrible. So that's a difficult decision for the club to make. Where do you draw that line with a contract offer? Because, yeah, if you can't get an agreement with Ibrahim Canade on a new deal, then you've got no choice but to sell him this summer. And then that becomes, you know, we don't want to risk going from this really good position to undermining ourselves and leaving ourselves a mountain to climb as well. You would hope after having a year to analyse and assess everybody that they have plans for all of these things. But again, you do ask yourself, how have we let ourselves get into the position again where it could be moved and we could have players who, again, are running down deals? You know, it just feels like, how do I say? I don't understand how we've let it happen again. I don't. You know, it's like we didn't learn the lesson of the Trent contract saga. We've again allowed this to happen. And we've took a huge risk this season with Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah. And thankfully that's paid off and we've got them to sign new deals. But I don't want another season of talking about contracts being run down. I don't want another season of every conversation being about what may happen in a negative sense down the line. I want this to be Liverpool's launch pad into players, again, wanting to come and play for this club because they're going to win trophies. And I don't want us undermining ourselves with naivety. And that's all I can think of. Because it feels to me like Liverpool never thought Trent was going to go. And as much as Canade seems to love the club, I don't know what the lure of a Real Madrid. For instance, Jamie Carragher said that he thinks most people in the dressing room will want to play for Real Madrid. So does that mean that we're signing players in the future? We have to go through a list and ask them on a lie detector test, do you ever want to play for Madrid or not? Because I don't like Liverpool Football Club being spoken about as anything other than a destination club. We are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we need to be spoken about as such. We need to carry ourselves as such, and we need to be thought of as such. I don't want players who don't want to be here. And if there's any doubt about that, well then there's the door. Move them on and bring in somebody else. Craig, is there too much hate towards Jones? I don't think so. Again, I'm not everywhere all the time, but I certainly think Jones has had his best season at Liverpool so far for me. Whether that's ultimately good enough or not, do I think he'll ever be in the starting Liverpool 11 week in, week out? No. But he cares. And, that counts for a lot. He does look like he cares out there on the pitch. But still feels to me like he thinks he's the kid on the playground that's better than everybody else and has to make stuff happen and has to force the issue and give me the ball and I'm going to try and make something happen. He takes too long out of it. So I think it's quieting down this year, but there's always a scapegoat. Whether it was Lallana, whether it was Henderson, there always seems to be a scapegoat. I'd be better off naming players I'd rather not sell than sell, said David. Nimoha far too raw for the first team this year. Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting decision for the club. What's best to do with Rio? You don't want to stunt his development. You don't want to throw him in too soon. But if you're going to loan him out, where do you loan him to? Because he's still going to be playing senior football. And it's the question, is he physically okay to play senior football? If the answer to that is yes, then I'd probably keep him at Liverpool. And if the answer to that is no, well then loaning him out doesn't make any sense either. It's a matter of just giving him opportunities, keeping him going with the 21s, maybe letting him play some League Cup games or breaking him in easily over the course of a season. And that's probably where ultimately I'd end up with young Rio. We've seen Yamal as an example. He's hardly the most physically strong person in the world, but you can see what he does on the pitch and you can see how much he enjoys it. So I guess we won't know with young Rio till maybe he's thrown in the deep end a little bit and we get to see what he can do. But by all accounts, he sounds like he's the real deal. And I trust Arnott on when to utilise his judgment on when to start introducing them or not. While we're speaking about young prodigies, actually, a post from Red Memorabilia online who was quote tweeting a Fabrizio Romano post. The post said, Arsenal have offered Chelsea 1.25 million for England under-18 goalkeeper Freddie Bernal. Chelsea rejected the bid, clear on the position as they don't want to sell him. Several other clubs remain interested. And then there's a quote tweet that said, Liverpool are interested in repeating their success with Rio and signing Freddie Bernal this summer. Bernal is considered the best goalkeeper in England for his age. So I don't know anything about this keeper, by the way. So, although I do like the idea of winding Chelsea up again, if at all possible. But anybody watch this kid as a goalkeeper? I don't know anything about him. Joseph Purvis said, Craig, what would be your honest thoughts on the... What? Do you think on the first signing we get over the line? I'm trying to figure out the post, mate. For me, I think the first one through the door will probably be Kirkes, but the first position through the door for me should be centre forward, as well as the first position out the door should be centre forward. Philip said, the kid has only just turned 16, under 21s next season, and then see where he is then. But 16 these days, you see players at 16 start to get brought through into the first team. These are what I think, Philip, are genuinely the most difficult decisions for a manager, is when you've got that young player who is thought about so highly and is so clearly a talent, when to drop them in. Because you always want to drop them in my opinion, to a team that's doing well, rather than maybe have them to come on to try to be the saviour. And if that doesn't work, then the kid gets written off. It's so difficult. And I think it's something that managers like Jurgen did well, Alex Ferguson did well, Wenger did well. To be credit to Arteta, to give credit to Arteta, he's done that well at Arsenal with the likes of Lewis Skelly as well, bringing them through. But it's such a tough one. I don't envy a manager having to make that decision on when to bring through somebody like him, because you also want to make sure he feels you're showing faith in him and you do believe in him, but you don't want a kid to get broken up either if he's not physically ready. Stevie Boy said apparently Liverpool officials are planning holding talks with Rodrigo management. So yeah, we did discuss this. There was a post. There was a post that came from Matt Thielen that said that his camp had contacted Liverpool and that Liverpool were going to do their due diligence over a potential deal for him. And look, I like Rodrigo as a player, and we know Michael Edwards is a fan. You know, we said it before. We tried to sign him before he went to Real Madrid. I don't think he was in the Madrid squad today, unless I'm mistaken. But then trying to just figure out where he fits in. Oh, I would take him in a heartbeat, Stevie Boy. Don't get me wrong. You know, if you brought in him, you brought in an ALVAREZ, or you brought in an Mbuemo, you know, there are certain players that I think just would work for us, and Rodrigo is one of them. But I still don't know where he plays, especially if we keep Diaz and Gakpo, because I don't think Rodrigo's a natural number 9. I don't see any indication from Arna that maybe he'll move Mo centrally, but at least it would give competition, and it would maybe give Mo something to worry about if he wasn't playing well, having somebody like Rodrigo there. Yeah, I mean, I'd love it to be the case. But I just keep coming back to ask myself, when's the last time we bought a player from Madrid or Barcelona for serious money? It doesn't really happen very often. Usually once a player goes to Madrid, the price becomes too prohibitive for us to go back and try to bring them in. So if you're Michael Edwards and you're looking at a kid that's probably now valued at about €100 million, and you know that you nearly signed him before he went there for $2.5 million, you know, that's a big mental leap to make, to try and think, right, do we still have the need and the space for this kid? And then will he adjust to the Premier League or not? So I think that's a good poll, though. So I'm going to actually start on that one. Let me just ask this question. Should we sign Rodrigo? So there you go. Yep. Yes or no. Should we sign Rodrigo? Yes or no. And we'll come back and revisit that one in a while. It's a difficult one, though, because, again, not knowing what the forward line looks like. You know, if Chiesa is going to move on, then yeah, absolutely. We need somebody that can push Mo and be an alternative. If Diaz and Jota move on, then yeah, again, along with Chiesa, there's space in the squad. So it'll come down to, for me, if there's space in the squad for him to really get enough games. And I think if we move Chiesa on, the answer to that would be yes. Man like Spen said yes if Lucho leaves. But what if Chiesa leaves? So what if Chiesa leaves and then we are without a backup for Mo? Then you could think, okay, well, Rodrigo could play anywhere across the front line, or you could put Rodrigo left, move Diaz right if you need to give Salah a breather, or if Salah isn't performing. It's about making sure that every player doesn't feel that they are above being dropped or above being taken off. You should have pressure coming from everyone. At a football club like Liverpool, nobody should be too comfortable in their position. You should always be worrying that if you don't perform, the next guy in the list is going to take your spot. And I think if you had real quality like that, putting pressure on, then who knows? But it just doesn't feel like a Liverpool type signing to me, to go out and sign Rodrigo. Man United are currently 33-1 to win the Premier League next season. That's there's more chance of the local pub team winning it. That's nuts. Their season's been shambolic. So, Madrid Extra posted this. Now, it's got nothing to do with Trent, but some Real Madrid fans have decided to go to Valdebebas to wait for the players to arrive from Barcelona because they got beaten today by Barcelona 4-3 and threw away a 2-goal lead. That's the level of holding players to account that you get over there at Real Madrid. So, yeah, I don't think that's anything Liverpool players have ever had to worry about. Coming back from a game and being met with angry fans. That's, enjoy that one there, Trent. The real Johnny Sin said, I've got a feeling City will get him. So I've seen City linked. Who was it I seen City linked to earlier on? And it really surprised me. It was an attacker. It wasn't Rodrigo, but it was an attacker. And I remember thinking, but they have Haaland and they have Marmoush. And forgive me, but I can't for the life of me remember who it is that I've seen them linked to. But I remember sitting back up and thinking, but do they need him? Like, where would they play him? Ash said, I was optimistic regarding the summer, but Ornstein comments and Arna's comments recently have poured cold water all over it. Now I'm worried that we'll cheap out and hear this team has won a trophy, blah, blah. So what particular David Ornstein comments has you concerned, Ash? Because, I think I've seen most of them and there's nothing that's rang alarm bells for me. The manager I always expect. Like, I never expect a manager to come out and say a title-winning team needs 6 or 7 players publicly. I wouldn't expect that of the manager. But behind the scenes, I certainly hope that he knows the deficiencies in the team that he needs to address. Joshua said, Trent getting booed was interesting to see. Fans will not tolerate bullshit and I like it. Look, again, I think everybody has their own right to express how they feel. I just don't like the pylon for people that have an opinion. So, like, I'm going to read this out to you. And it annoyed me because I'm getting fucking sick of Ian Doyle looking down his nose at Liverpool fans. But this was the headline in an opinion piece from him in the Echo. Liverpool's response to Trent was disgraceful and self-destructive. It played into Arsenal's hands. Now, that's one viewpoint of it. Another viewpoint is, why bring him on to let the situation happen? And who gets the blame here? Because, he loves to look down his nose at some Liverpool fans and say that we're all, football championship manager people that want 500 million spent. But now he's given out to the hardcore match-going fans that weren't happy. So, make up your mind. Is it the overseas, non-match going fans' fault, or is it the in-stadium fans' fault? He can't seem to make up his mind who to be angry about, Mr. Doyle, but always feels like he's got the moral high ground. Always. And it really, really winds me up about him, because he feels and writes and acts as if he's above the rest of us, and he isn't. And yes, he's entitled to have his opinion, the same as everybody else. And I'm entitled to sit here and say that I think he's an idiot. So, freedom of expression and all that. He can write what he wants, and I can sit here and tell him I think he's a clown. Because he's a judgmental, jumped-up git that loves to look down his nose at Liverpool fans. Because they don't perhaps take the soup and drink the club Kool-Aid and do everything that Ian Doyle wants them to do. And I'm done with him, and I'm fed up of him. And I wonder who he represents when he's writing, because I don't know any Liverpool fan that has good things to say about him. I'm sick of him. Him and everybody else that thinks they get to look down their nose at the rest of us. Done with them. Absolute clowns. I'm fed up of it. Don't forget the extensions of Salah and Van Dijk's contracts. There's significant costs. Others to follow, like Canadian agreement, can be reached. Oh, so that was it. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ash. I do appreciate you coming back in, mate, with that comment, because it gives me some perspective on, how to respond to it. So, there's no denying that extending Van Dijk and Salah costs money. But let me I guess, press back to David Ornstein's comment with something like this, it would have cost even more money if they didn't extend them. So the idea that extending them is a reason for us to expect less in the transfer market, I don't think is a fair viewpoint, because, well, what if we didn't extend them? We'd have to go out there and spend a lot more money to replace them. Then maybe you would have had an argument to say to Liverpool fans, temper your expectations a little bit, but we've extended players that are here. I think that saved us money, if anything, in the long run. So I certainly wouldn't be using that as a reason to feel like if we don't have a summer that sees us strengthen, that's an acceptable excuse. Because also, another thing to add to that would be, well, we went the whole season without giving them that rise anyway, so we probably saved money. And if we had have extended them a year ago, we would have had to pay them that salary this year. So I guess, look, there's loads of different ways to look at it, but ultimately, I don't think Van Dijk and Salah can be used as an excuse not to spend for any reason. I think the Trent situation has affected the players, said Christopher. I definitely felt like it affected the crowd today in the stadium, mate. And that's unfortunate. And I mean that sincerely. It is unfortunate because, whether you were happy or unhappy with Trent today, everybody that bought their ticket and went to that game today wanted to go there to celebrate the Premier League champions, wanted to go there to see Arsenal give us the guard of honour and then hopefully see us beat Arsenal. But that's not what happened, and that's not what unfolded over the course of the second half. And that, sincerely, I feel sad about, because it doesn't benefit anyone. Whichever side of the debate you're on, it's not a vibe you want to see inside Anfield. You don't want fans arguing with each other. You just don't want it happening. I want our fans to be united together on the same page and the us against the world mentality. Jaffa Jake said, does anybody know if we have to book the free ticket to the Liverpool end of season party at the Hot Water? No, you don't have to. If you're talking about the screening of the game and all, no, it's first come, first served, I believe, when the doors open. In fact, I don't think you're able to reserve a ticket unless I'm mistaken. But our show then at 7:30, that's a different thing altogether. But as far as I'm aware, mate, it's a first come, first served for that and for the parade the next day. Alex said, can't stand Doyle, can't stand Dominic King either. I didn't even know Dominic King was still covering Liverpool Football Club when he jumped on his little, I'm not letting you say that, crusade a while back. I was like, just stick to the fucking horse race, mate. Like, yeah, I don't know. Can you stop making noise out there? Right, let's talk about Hugo Larsson, because Bild over in Germany have reported that Liverpool are said to have made inquiries with Hugo Larsson's representatives. Frankfurt want to sign a midfielder, and Endo is one of the names on their list. We haven't really spoken about what we think happens with Endo this summer. We all want him to stay. Let's be on that page. We all love him and want him to stay, but realistically, is he going to get minutes? Probably not. So we're getting back to that question of, I don't want the manager having players on the bench that the manager doesn't feel that he can use. Does that make sense? So whatever I think about Endo or Elliott or Chiesa is irrelevant. But what the manager thinks is clearly that they're not getting game times and starts. So, looking at it from that perspective, I think he should be sold. I don't want us carrying players in the squad that aren't going to be utilised, because it takes up wages, it takes up a squad place, and it's just counterintuitive because we don't get to see these guys because the manager doesn't trust them. And what's the point of all of that? So for me, that's what this summer should be about. Starting to remove whoever, as harsh as it sounds, whoever the manager doesn't want should be removed. Because there's no good having a player there he doesn't feel he can trust. No matter what we all think about it, his decision is the be all and end all. If he's not going to play them, what's the point in carrying them in the squad? Dave said, Craig, are you still doing the next player interview? I don't know, is the honest answer, Dave. That whole stuff has nothing to do with me. So I just offered my services to the Hot Water for whatever they need me for before my show starts at 7:30. And at this point in time, I genuinely don't know what the plan is 100% in that regard. So I would say I don't think so. At least I haven't been told to prepare for the interview or anything, so I don't think so. Mood with the fans is toxic and can understand it. Trent should not have played. Look, I agree with that. I do. I agree with that because I think we could have avoided the situation today. But then again, there's so many different ways you can look at that as well. You can say that Arne Slot's perfectly within his rights to put a player on that he thinks can help in a game. You can say that this could have been dealt with a long time ago if it had have been spoken about more upfront and open. You can make an argument that could have avoided this situation today if Trent had waited a few more weeks to make his announcement. You can look at it from 10 or 12 different angles and have a viewpoint that makes sense. But all we know is what did happen. And what did happen was the atmosphere went weird. And it was a strange situation for everybody concerned. Ekitike. This was the Manchester City player. Sorry, I've just got my notes open here on it. And this coming from Germany. And this is why I was so surprised, by the way. Man City's incoming sporting director, Hugo Viana, has opened talks with Hugo Ekitike in an attempt to beat Arsenal, Chelsea and Man United to the Frenchman's signature. But what you don't see in that name from Bild is Liverpool. You don't see us being mentioned as linked. So this is what I'm saying. I find it really difficult to get a read on who Liverpool want through the centre. And let me add this, and I like that. I like that we're all being kept guessing. I don't like leaks coming out of football clubs. I don't like people like Fabrizio Romano that exist from those leaks and from narratives that are being fed to him by certain agents and clubs. I like the fact that we keep our cards close to our chest, and I like the fact that we're all guessing as long as we make the signing. But yeah, why would Man City want to sign Hugo Ekitike? It confuses me. They have Omar Marmoush, they have Haaland. Do they need him? This is 100% true. 100% true. 100%. So, as I said, the hypocrisy of rival fans and pundits about the Trent stuff is nuts. Because, as I've mentioned, Grealish got 100 million quid for Aston Villa and still gets booed. And I don't remember this big furore about that. Do you? Do you remember this type of stuff? And by the way, Rio Ferdinand, let me say this to Rio. So Rio posted to say that he can't understand why Liverpool fans are booing one of their own. And this is why I don't care what he has to say. This is the same Rio Ferdinand that told Newcastle fans they should be grateful for Mike Ashley. Why was that? Was it because you were flogging your Rio 5 gear in Sports Direct? Was it because you liked Mike Ashley? Because it certainly wasn't because of the best interest of the Newcastle fans, Rio, was it? Who were absolutely heartbroken seeing their football club treading water and turned into a glorified Sports Direct ad at St James's Park. So that's the same fella that thinks he gets to tell us Liverpool fans how to feel when he told Newcastle fans they should be grateful to Mike Ashley. So him and his deluded opinions around any other club he can keep to himself. This is what I said. There is a lack of non-bias in punditry in football these days. And when I've got him and fucking the other clown almost wetting themselves with excitement doing comms on United games, and then I have to listen to Gary Neville drearily commentating on Liverpool and Arsenal after we win the league, I don't care what all these clowns have to say. I'm telling you right now, there isn't one fucking United fan in the world that wouldn't be pissed off if Scholes was leaving at 26 on a free to head to Real Madrid. Not one. There wouldn't be one Arsenal fan that wasn't up in arms if Saka, in a few years' time, ran down his contract and left Arsenal to go to Real Madrid. Not one. So Don't jump on your high horse and think you get to look down your nose at Liverpool fans. This is just another excuse to have a dig at the city of Liverpool and Liverpool in general. And that's all they want from it. End of. So everybody inside our little fan base and inside our media world, everyone's entitled to an opinion. But these other clowns are just sticking the boot in to try and undermine us. And that isn't going to wash. Suleiman said, I don't think Bradley's strong enough yet. We need backup while he's developing. I actually thought he did well today. I thought both of our fullbacks did better than our centre-backs. You know, they both were up against tricky operators. And I thought that Conor Bradley did quite well there today. Maybe he was physically flagging towards the end, or maybe it was the yellow card he was on, I'm not sure. But yeah, I thought he was okay. And there's no denying we need to bring in another right back, but I certainly think it should be a battle for the starting spot, and Bradley should be in serious consideration for it. I think I've always said I don't think he's the finished product, but I do think there's a lot to work with. Arsenal fans burned their Van Persie shirts, and he's a Dutch fella that played for the Momentum United. I know it's just hypocrisy to have a go at Liverpool, the city and the fans. End of. And it's just disguised as football opinions. I'm sorry, but it is. And like I've always said, I will disagree with my fellow Liverpool fans or Scousers on many things, but I will never let them be spoken down to, and I will never let the city of Liverpool or its people be belittled by people that aren't fit to lace the fucking shoes of the good people of Liverpool, who are as honest and hard-working and sincere as the day is long. And I will always defend Liverpool and its fans and its city from people like Ferdinand, who think they get to spout their nonsensical opinions. It's bullshit. He knows it, you know it, I know it. And again, same fella that told Newcastle fans they should be grateful to Mike Ashley. It's anti-Liverpool. It is. Absolutely. That's all it is. So, this report from the Echo said Liverpool are strong favourites to sign Bournemouth's 21-year-old Hungary international Milos Kerkez, who's expected to cost a minimum of £40 million. I wonder though, I've been thinking a lot about the situation with, not so much Kerkez, but more with Hoyson. So do you remember a report a few days ago, I can't remember which journalist wrote it, but the report basically said that Liverpool wanted to be respectful of the fact that Bournemouth were still challenging for a Europa League or a European spot and didn't want to start pursuing Hoyson just yet. I sat back and thought about that, and it just makes me wonder, are we too nice? Are we too naive? Because do I think for 1 second that maybe Madrid or Chelsea or Arsenal or others aren't in his ear or trying to get him to commit to move? No, they are. Absolutely they are. So I want Liverpool to do the same. And I don't want us to miss out on a player because, again, we weren't proactive enough or we didn't go strong enough. So if we want Hoyson and he's the guy, well then let's start making them moves to get him in, because sitting around isn't going to do us any good. And I get the idea of being respectful, but look, let's not be naive about this. You know, players get poached. It happens. And, you know, football, for all its portrayal of being a nicey nice business, is ruthless. Right, let's check on the poll. So, we said, should we sign Rodrigo? We've had over 1,000 votes, and 67% said yes, we should sign Rodrigo, and thank you to everyone that voted. Right, folks, if I could ask you a small little favour. There's 51 short of 311,000. If you could hit that subscribe button and help us out, it would make a huge difference, and thank you. Drop a like in the stream as well. But as you can see, we're only 51 away now. So every single one of you that hits that subscribe button really does make a big difference. Right, Daniel said, I can't wait until the off-field talk is gone and we can focus on the football. It really has tainted this great season. It's been draining, Daniel, hasn't it? You know, all the way through the campaign, we've been discussing the contracts. All the way through it. And forever people say about it, the players being professionals or not, it's taken its toll on us fans. It has. It's been draining. And I can't speak for anybody else, but it certainly impacted my enjoyment of winning the title. because I spent the entire time, as I've mentioned on many streams, sitting here feeling like there was an elephant in the corner of the room, always there, always trying to remind you of what can go wrong. And I've had this mad, weird anxiety all season, even though we were comfortable in the league. So I don't want that repeated with the likes of Canada in that next year, because it hasn't been a nice feeling. Like it doesn't feel like we're the team that just won the Premier League. It again feels like there's more bubbling frustration than a release of enjoyment. David Smith said, Trent should be on the bus for the parade. All the winners should be, but I'm not happy with Trent. Look, again, I respect everybody's opinion on this situation, and whatever happens, happens. But what I won't be unhappy about, Dave, is when it's all over, i.e. when we don't have to talk about him anymore, when we don't have to talk about how him coming on or not coming on will impact the crowd and the fans. That I'm ready to be done with. Same with Darwin, by the way. I'm absolutely ready to be done with him. So actually, can I ask you guys that on a poll? So, has the contracts... One second. Situation impacted your enjoyment this season? Right, so I'm going to ask, has the contract situation impacted your enjoyment this season? Because I'm genuinely curious to see how people feel about it. Because I know some people will be like, nah, doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'm able to compartmentalise and switch off. Then you've got people like me who can't switch off and obsess about everything to do with the club, good, bad or indifferent. So I just want to see overall how people feel about it. And if you could take part and let me know, the more votes we get, the bigger sample size, the better idea I have of how people have felt about it. Right. So I want to just spend the rest of the stream talking to whatever you guys want to talk to. So you let me know what subject you want to discuss and we'll have a chat about it. We do have a news video coming up later tonight. It'll be out before 11, where we'll go through all the transfer stories in more detail. But I just want this to be a chance for us all to have our say. So please put your comments in and I will go whatever direction that you guys want the rest of the stream to go in. And one more thing on the game today before I do. I think that scoreline was probably a fair reflection of what we've seen on the pitch. But I've often said to you guys, it's sometimes how these games finish. And if you're a team that was 2-0 down and come back to draw 2-2, you always feel like you leave there with a bit more of a bounce in your step, right? You're a bit more upbeat. But if you're a team that's 2-0 up and ends up being pegged back to 2-2, it definitely feels like it was a bit of an anticlimax. And that's how I felt after today's game. I was so hyped up when we were 2-0 up. I was so happy because I really wanted to underline that we were champions and that we were deserving champions and that we were the better team. And we were so close to doing that, and then we just let it go in the second half, and that frustrated me today more than anything. Alec Carey said, Bradley has lots of potential, but we need more experience in his position to land number 21. Get your hands in your pockets, John, for once in your life. Well, it looks as if the links to Jeremy Frimpong are consistent and are widespread. Now, Paul Joyce said Jeremy Frimpong is a leading candidate should Liverpool look to strengthen right back this summer. We've seen James Pearce talk about it as well. We've seen David Ornstein talk about it. Fabrizio Romano said Liverpool are well informed on Frimpong's situation and the instalments are there for his release clause. I don't know the exact ins and outs of the instalments, but there's talk that it can be paid for in 4 instalments. He remains one of the names on the shortlist to replace Trent, with Frimpong expected to be keen on the move. So again, it's good to hear that side of things. And as well as Liverpool looking at him, he very much likes the idea of coming and playing for Liverpool. Gio said, yes, this season has definitely been weird for me. Yeah, I hate going into a season knowing it's going to be taken over by contract talks. It annoyed me a few years back when it was the Salah situation as well, and we went through that whole year wondering was he going to get a contract extension. This was maybe, when he got his last extension. I don't like it. I do think it undermines the season. Jason Irish Red said, Craig, I can't help but feeling like we lost that game today. Well, we didn't do what I wanted us to do, Jason, which was send Arsenal back to London beaten and with no positives to take from it. But that didn't happen today. They're going to go back to London now thinking, right, we went toe-to-toe with Liverpool at Anfield. We didn't capitulate after going in 2-0 at half-time. We didn't have Declan Rice and Gabriel there. And we were maybe unlucky not to go and win that game in the second half. That's going to encourage them, and that's going to give Arteta fuel to go into that dressing room and fire them up for next season. So yeah, it definitely feels like we let an opportunity to put them back in their box out of the way. It feels like an opportunity missed, and it's also a really weird feeling when you've won the league and yet you haven't won a game in the last two since you've won it. That's a weird thing as well. Now look, you always expect to drop off, but you want to finish the season strongly because you want to be bouncing into next season. But look what happened when the players start playing forward passes. We were coasting. Yeah, it's difficult. You sometimes can't really put your finger on the swing and the pendulum swing in a game of football, and how one team can seize the initiative and the other team naturally starts to drop deeper. And we didn't seem to have any way to repel Arsenal's domination at the start of that second half. Once they got that goal, I don't think there was a person on planet Earth watching it who didn't feel like the second was coming. And we didn't seem to be able to stop it. We didn't seem to be able to grab the game with the scruff of the neck or stop that momentum either by, sport gamesmanship and rolling around or wasting time or just anything. It just felt like it was giving the ball back to Arsenal. They had too much space in midfield and it was attack after attack after attack. And only then when the worst happened and we went to 2-2 and they went down to 10 men, did it really felt like we got the initiative back and pushed. Psychology of football is fascinating though, to watch how a game ebbs and flows like that. Craig, what happens with and when the next season shirts are worn by the team and public sale? Any dates? August the 1st, I believe, Mark. So the deal that Liverpool have with Nike runs through to the end of June. To the end of July. So I believe that Liverpool won't be selling or the players won't be wearing the new shirt for the last game of the season anyway. As Nike will want to see Liverpool lifting the Premier League in a Nike shirt. They paid all that money. So, yeah, August the 1st. And I wonder if coincidentally that kind of goes in with the expansion of the club store at Anfield. I think they're redeveloping that to make it bigger. And it almost feels as if that's all coming together for the launch of the Adidas stuff at the start of August. Now, I'm sure in July there'll be pre-sales, but I think they can't physically deliver the shirts until August the 1st, and they can't start selling them publicly. I think you can pre-order maybe, but yeah, August the 1st. Which is weird, right? Because I love the excitement of seeing the team in the new kit for the last home game of the season. But yeah, we won't get to see that this year. But I'm so excited about the Adidas return to Liverpool. Joshua said, Bajcetic could be a third option at right back. He can play in a similar role to Trent. Yeah, Bajcetic started his career, if I'm not mistaken, as a centre-back. And again, if I'm not mistaken, I think Trent started his career as a centre-forward. And football is littered with stories like that, with players who play in one position and then end up elsewhere. I think even Caoimhín Kelleher started his footballing journey as a striker and then became a goalkeeper. And, I think it was the right decision there, I think we can say. What else was there? One thing I hated when we would get the ball down the wing in our own half, yet we wouldn't go forward and turn around, hold the ball. Most times we lost it. It was a frustrating second half all over. Yeah, it was so fucking frustrating. There's nothing else really to add. Bacon Bap said, feel like Liverpool have been at the mercy of players and other clubs for too long. Time to show big intent this summer under our control. Yes, sir. I agree with that 100%. It's time to start acting like a big club. So we've heard stuff in the media saying that FSG are invigorated and, ready. Good. Let's Liverpool go out there now and strengthen from that position of strength. And I hope that all the talk of us being set up for success for years to come is true, because that's what we all want. But we've, once bitten, twice shy and all that. So let's wait and see what actually does happen in the window. Boeing Zibbity said the work on the new Baltic Triangle train station starts in November this year, will allow for a higher capacity. Nice. Good. Colin Brooks said Craig, seeing is believing. Yes. And hopefully we see it so we can believe it. So Rusba, thank you for your super chat, my friend. Said, has to be said that Kloppo is more loyal than Trent. Will never go to another Premier League club or a rival such as Madrid for that matter. So I think there's also a quote from Jurgen that said something like, it's not important what people think about you when you arrive, it's what they think about you when you leave. Which is kind of, I think, poignant on a day like today. Colin said, Craig, who would you like Kelleher to go to club-wise? Somebody mentioned Bayern Munich the other day, and I think that would be incredible. Because I don't remember Bayern Munich having an Irishman playing for them. And I don't really want to see Kelleher going and strengthening the Premier League rival, but I also don't want to stand in his way because he's earned that right. So, yeah, I want him to get the biggest move possible, but ideally not one that's going to impact Liverpool. So, for instance, I'd love to see him at somebody like a Bayern Munich, I think a good fit for him would be somewhere like a Newcastle, Leeds United. I could see him doing well at as well. Somewhere that he's going to get to play, that because he's earned that. He's been a very patient number 2. He's been a great deputy to Alisson, and I just want the best from him, both as an Irishman, of course, and as somebody who appreciates how he's carried himself and never kicked up a fuss. I think he's been a model pro. The detective said, if we end up losing Darwin and Chiesa, who would you replace Chiesa with? I know you like ALVAREZ, and I think he'd be great up front. Who are some of the other players you'd like to see us get? So if you're replacing Chiesa, I'm talking Brian and Mbeumo, ideally Rodrigo, somebody like that, because you don't want to block the pathway for somebody like a young Rio, but you also do want to make sure that you're sorted for the here and now as well. So, yeah, I think Brian and Mbeumo would be great on the right-hand side as an option, because I think he's an incredibly underrated player. Through the centre, I love ALVAREZ, but I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know enough about Ekitike. Sesko I like, but I also understand why people would have some reservations there. It's a difficult one. Jonathan David looks like, is it Napoli? I've seen some club in Serie A were pushing to try and get Jonathan David on a free. If it's not Napoli, my apologies, but it is somebody in Italy. I read that a while ago. So I'm glad we're not bringing him in on a free, because it would have just felt like the cheap option. I wouldn't have minded Delap, to be honest, as a punt, as a second attacker, but I think he'll probably go somewhere like Chelsea. And Cunha, it's just not worth the risk, in all honesty. So yeah, I really don't know. But Chiesa was the question you asked, and for me, somebody like Mbeumo would be the answer. It would be the most Liverpool thing ever to sign some striker from the Romanian second division with all of us almost die with frustration and end up scoring 40 goals. Yeah, you never know with Michael Edwards. You know, he definitely is somebody who surprised us on occasions with some of the players he's unearthed. But I have trust in the recruitment team. My trust and my frustration's always been with the backing from the owners. But if they're given the money and the power to go out and make these deals, I think we should be good. Kyle Agger said, fair to say Bournemouth are out of any real European competition places. We should be getting deals done now. I thought that myself, mate, yesterday. I came to the very same conclusion as you. Once they lost that game to Villa, I thought, right now, no niceties anymore. Go get deals done, please, and thank you. So, I'd love a window of Huijsen, Kirkes. I'm kind of coming around to Frimpong, and a striker. But I think we may see 3 depart up top. What do you guys want to happen with Jota? Because I've said loads of times I think we should sell him. But I'm not seeing much really in the media about it. Diaz seems to be the one most linked along with Darwin with a move away. The Chiesa situation is fairly self-explanatory. But what do you want to happen with Diogo Jota? Because I'd sell him. I just think we need that refresh. Now let's do a proper refresh and not half-arse it. Move on both our central strikers. Bring in 2 other options. And of course have Jayden Danns as well as a potential prospect for the future. So let me know in the chat what you would do with Jota. Owen Cobb said sell. I'd be in the selling camp as well, to be honest with you, mate. I would. But I do have respect for Diogo. I just think his level's dropped. You know, there's no bad blood or anything like that. Diogo Jota's been a great servant to the club. And I very much enjoyed watching him. And he scored some brilliant, brilliant goals over the years. But this season feels like the right time, maybe, to come to an end. Colin said sell back to Wolves. I think Wolves are interested, but I think when I remember reading something that suggested he wanted to go to a club playing in Europe. Sell Jota. Heard much about Mamardashvili. Yes, he's done really well. Like Valencia are actually something like 9th now in La Liga. They've rocketed up the table with a few wins, and he had a very good performance the other day, making some really good saves. So yeah, I'm interested to see Mamardashvili in pre-season, see him on the training pitch with Alisson, and see how that goes. It's an exciting one, but yeah, his form has certainly started to get better as the season's gone on there with Valencia. And I'm delighted for Valencia as well that they've moved away from the relegation zone, because they would, in my head, be one of those clubs that should be too big to be going down. Ash said he would sell Diogo. Craig Adams said, thank you for your service, but time to move on. Jaffa Jake said, I like Jota. He's had a tough year, but he can be our Origi going forward. Jota is finished, unfortunately. Sell him, said Jason Irish Red. Flip Flop said Darwin, Jota and Chiesa out, Alvarez and Mbuemo in, Elliot and Endo out, which I don't want. Literally anyone that's good. And Kwanzaa, Costas and Trent out, Frimpong, Huijsen and Hato in. So Hato over Kirkes for you, mate. Interesting. Dave Smith said, I'd sell him as well. Got a couple of great forwards. World class would be ideal place for Danns to play. Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very interested to see how Danns gets on next season. I hope that he gets a good loan and that he's able to stand the rigours of a full season. Because again, talent-wise, the question isn't really about that. It's about, can his body stand up to it? And unfortunately, this season's been a tough one for him. What's this one? Yeah, if we have a target available, which is good business, then a big yes. He's been amazing for us, but injuries and consistency has dropped this year, and we don't need someone like that on the team. Sell Jota, said Rob Wilson. Absence said, Would you make Rio our backup left wing to free up more cash for a better striker when selling Diaz, Nunes and Jota? I just don't see the rush or the need to sell Diaz. I don't know if I'm on my own on this one, but as the season's gone on, I think he's shown his value. You've got 2 years left. He's 28, I think, now. Easily give him 2 more years. And if he wants to stay, keep him. Genuinely, I don't feel the need to upset the left side of our attack, because I think you've got 2 good players there who can push each other. And if one isn't doing it, well then the other one plays and vice versa. So yeah, honestly, I would never have been looking to move on him. But the only reason I even talk about selling him is because it's been mentioned so much in the media, especially with previous links to Barca, now of course links to Saudi. But my ideal scenario would be sell him, and then, or excuse me, keep him, sell Jota, sell Darwin, and if Chiesa's going, Chiesa goes. I've never understood the big desire to get rid of Diaz. He always, at the very least, puts in 100% and gets you up off your seat. And I was really, 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 not the word proud, that's not the right word. I was so impressed with the way he was able to continue playing when what was happening with his mum and dad, particularly the length of his dad's situation in Colombia when he was kidnapped. And Diaz still went out there on the pitch and played and performed. And I mean, he went up a lot in my estimations then, because I can only imagine how difficult that must have been to go out there on the pitch and even think about playing football with that going on. And he did it, and he did it well. And I just really like the fella. I don't see any big need to move him on. Pasky said, do you also feel our squad lacks pace? Think we've spoiled with Sadio and younger Mo? 100% yes, mate, definitely. That would be my biggest criticism of the attack, is that we don't have enough pace. Pace kills. Defenders hate it. I love seeing a young winger just run at a fullback. So 100% I feel like we could do with some more pace in behind. Now, look, Darwin has pace to burn, but it's no good running when you're offside. Diogo, for all of his positive attributes, pace wasn't one of them. And today I seen Gakpo kind of losing a foot race with a centre-back, and I was a bit concerned as well. So, yeah, I definitely don't think we're the slowest team in the Premier League, but we could do with a bit of pace. Right, let me check the poll. So we did ask you, has the contract situation impacted your enjoyment of the season? And we've had 850 votes, so we'll leave it running for a couple of minutes longer. But if you can, please do vote on that one, because I'd love to know as many people's answers as possible on it. Right, we've about 10 minutes left in tonight's stream, so do keep your comments coming in. Just a quick shameless plug for me about our live shows in Liverpool. Hope you can come along and join us for our end of season celebration. One on the left is the last day of the season, and the reunion show on the right is 3 days later, May 28th, again at the Hot Water Comedy Club. And I can't wait to come over and celebrate with everyone. Lucho should be the left wing and Gakpo centre if Slot wants to play them both, said Matt Denny. I just don't like either of them through the centre. I just don't think they're natural number 9s, and I think we're putting square pegs into round holes. Craig, I haven't seen anyone talk about who will cover Salah in the games from the AFCON. Thoughts? Well, this is what we're talking about, the likes of an Mbuemo or that, or even a Rodrigo. If you're going to move Chiesa on, you do have to replace that versatile attacker in the squad. So yes, when he goes away, and look, don't forget, we could move Diaz across to the right-hand side. That's absolutely an option. So if Liverpool brought in an out-and-out centre-forward in the summer, and Mo disappears for, what is it, up to a month maybe, you can play Diaz on the right-hand side, no problem. Would I take Vardy on a 1-year deal as an impact sub? Absolutely not. And I will say, without any hesitation, that most of the reason I'm saying no there is because I don't like him. Just don't like anything about him. He's been a very good player, and his career has been one that is enviable, and one that you would say is a good example of why you never give up in football, and you keep playing, you keep believing in yourself. And he only got his move to the top level at an older age, but no, not for me. Thoughts on City's draw with Southampton? Surprised. Very, very surprised. Thought that would have been the banker of the weekend, in all honesty. I would imagine many an accumulator was ruined because of that result. But it also made me think, well, how good are City going to be next year? Because, Rodri's going to come back in, but any player who's had an ACL will tell you that it takes a long time before you trust your body again and you feel free in the same range of movement. So, don't know what his form is going to be like. But I do take encouragement from them not being able to break down that Southampton team yesterday when you had the likes of Haaland, Marmouche, De Bruyne out on the pitch. Yeah, so I'm wondering, are they going to be the force that they were? Look, they're going to be a contender, but are they going to be? Are we going to think of them as the favourites going into next season? I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to depend on the business that they do, and I'll be an interested observer of them in the Club World Cup as well to see how they get on there. So Mbeumo will be off as well for the AFCON. I forgot about that. Sorry, yes, silly me forgetting about that. But as I mentioned, you could obviously stick across Diaz to the right hand side, no problem, and he could play there for a month or so. Or that could be the month you give young Rio his breakthrough. But look, it's easier to talk about who would play in that position when we know who's going to be playing for Liverpool next season. Ash said Nunes will go to Saudi, in my opinion. I saw reports saying Saudi club offered him over 500 grand a week and he was eager to go in Jan. Woo. Wow. I just want Liverpool to get the best deal we can for wherever he goes. Simple as that. And I'm counting on the days till we see the back of him. Who do you want to see win the Club World Cup and who do you think wins it? Who do I want to see win it? I mean, the romantic in me would like a River Plate or a Boca or somebody like that. Who do I think wins it? Difficult one because I don't know how seriously everyone's going to take it. It feels like one of those things Madrid are going to desperately want to win, particularly after the season that they've had. So I would say maybe them, just because I think a lot will be on that for them, and the world's eyes will be on that, and that's exactly the type of shiny, glossy trophy that they'd want. So maybe Madrid. Frimpong can cover Salah at the AFCON. Yeah, he could do. Absolutely. And that is one of the joys of potentially bringing him in, is you get a whole right-hand side cover, whether it's mid, winger, fullback, wing back. It just gives you options. Alex Hardy said none of the teams are really setting the world alight or had great seasons. Maybe Madrid edges it. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? You look at the teams that are in it and you think, are they really the best the Prem has to offer as an example? No, it isn't. You can obviously City, yes, but Chelsea being there, you would say Liverpool, Arsenal, stronger teams at the minute. And look, I understand it was done off, I think, European records or coefficient points or something gone back over a while, but yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like this is the best of each country in the Club World Cup. Certainly talking about it from the Premier League perspective, it's just a stupid time to have the tournament as well. Like at the end of another grueling season, where it's going to impact a manager's preparation for the next season. It's going to impact the holidays for the players. I mean, I'm almost glad we're not in it. I'm sure that the owners would have happily taken the money, and I get that point of it, but I'm not feeling like we're missing out by not being in it. I feel like we're going to be better prepared now for next season and hopefully ready to go from the off. I think it's going to be a distraction to some of those other teams. We missed out on Santi Jimenez when he was still fuming about it. Such a class player. Is that the kid who went from Feyenoord to AC Milan? Um, if I'm, or have I mixed him up with somebody else? Barcelona aren't even there either. it's crazy, isn't it? Like, you're having that tournament without the likes of Lamine Yamal or any of those Barcelona stars there. No Liverpool there, the current Premier League champions. No Arsenal there, the best team in Europe. Colin said, gutted for Forest. Looks like they'll end the season with nothing. No, they'll be in Europe. I think they're guaranteed to be in Europe now, no matter what. But they definitely feel like the outsiders now for a Champions League spot rather than one of the favourites. It's just gone away from them at the end, hasn't it? You're looking at those places now, and it feels like a 3-team fight for one place between Chelsea, Chelsea, Villa, and Forest for one spot. Jayden Danns will be a crucial player next season. Let's hope he turns out good, to Joshua. And let's hope Spurs win the Europa League as well, right? Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to go record the news video. We will have that out in the next 20-25 minutes, so do keep an eye out for it. We'll be covering all the latest transfer gossip. Again, thank you for coming back on tonight and having a chat with me. But one thing, if I could leave you with one thought before we finish up. You know, whatever about us Liverpool fans having an opinion around the Trent situation, don't let anybody else bring us down. You know, we all have a right to talk about it, and everybody else opinion doesn't matter. They're outsiders who don't want us to do well. So don't let them get in your head. Don't let them bring you down. And try to spend time building our bridges together as a fan base. You know, I hate to see Liverpool fans at each other's throats or divided about stuff. I really do. You know, it's us against the world. So let's try and stick together. And yeah, much love to you all. Thank you for dropping in again. Appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow.